Well, talo for love, everybody. It's Leao here from Talanosawa as well as the Daily Examiner. Tonight we have some very special guests. We have to address a few things, and just a privilege again to introduce them both, Mike and Rachel, who are from the New Zealand Teachers Speaking Out with Science. And so, welcome to you both, Mike, Rachel.
Kia ora, Leao. Yeah,
How are you
yeah.
both doing? How's your week been?
Hectic.
Well, I know you were busy when we first started having a discussion.
Hectic, yeah,
Huh.
and flights disrupted with weather and been up and down the island this week.
Yeah,
But good to be here.
yeah,
And of course,
lovely.
school
Thank you for
holidays,
coming.
kids everywhere.
Oh, yes, it's school holidays. Yay.
Mm.
So tonight, people, we have got a link which is on our Facebook page. We have been temporarily banned from putting this up on Facebook due to some truth telling. And so, if you have a look at the link on Facebook, it will take us to the YouTube. So that's where we're talking about live tonight. But we have a discussion tonight over something that has probably brought a little bit of fear to our parents this past week, and so very good for us to address it. Very good for
Yeah.
us to speak into it. If you don't know, maybe Rachel, you could start us off with what was actually said, and I pretty much will give you a platform. If there are any questions, write them up, and I'll bring them forth to both Rachel and Mike tonight.
So I guess what has been going around in the last, probably the last 2 weeks, to be fair, has been various posts from different organisations and sound bites of people talking about a massive lockdown for the kids and to keep the kids home at school when the school holidays end because they may be all put down to a 72-hour lockdown. So that caused quite a bit of concern. I've been contacted by many groups and many parents because we are NZTSOS, and so we are a lot of the educators who were mandated out, and some have gone back, etc., etc. So they have contacted us just because that fear is actually quite rife in the community now. And I think, as you said, Leao, it's really important that we address this because last 2 years we have had a whole bunch of fear thrown at us via the media, by the government, and to have that on these platforms, I think we just need to discuss it just because we shouldn't be. I don't think we should be living in fear. We need to be kind of moving on and trying to live our lives. So really important we address it. So thank you for having us on here
Sure.
to do that tonight.
100%.
Mm.
Also, too, we can break down some of the things that were talked about in that, so that we can address some of the issues that have come up with it. Mike, have you listened
Yeah.
to?
Well, I think firstly it was Rachel. First, to everyone who haven't, yeah, Rachel's. Well, she can tell you about her education background. My background's on the governance side. Like I'm on a board of trustees up in the far north. So Rachel raised it. Yeah, in the first week of the school holiday, she said to me, there's these posts and rumours going around about a 72-hour lockdown, and initially I didn't take that much notice of it. But when people in my community started to ask me, hey, what do you think about this? Like parents, wondering if it's safe to send their kids back to school, and a couple of random kind of messenger friends. So there was and specifically, I think there was a videotape that Rachel had seen, and there was an audio that's been circulating, and the other one that I saw was like a written thing. So there's variations of it, but in the two that came directly to me, the opening statements were, "They are coming for your children. Warn
Mm,
everybody. Warn everybody don't send your children back to school after the school holidays." So straight off the bat in with the high level of fear, and then what we've had to do, and Rachel's done a good job of it, is break it down and try and verify what elements of truth are actually behind this, and what's been conflated and what's got out of perspective. And so hopefully we'll be able to do some of that tonight.
I think there are a lot of questions that parents have, because obviously when we're sending our children, especially these past 2.5 years during a pandemic, it's terrifying. Like the type of stuff that has been, said over the, from media, from government, have just blowing things out of proportion, and so of course when something like this comes up to warn us, what part of it do we take, what part of it do we, how as I said when I was younger, chew the meat and spit out the bones, kind of typical Islander. You say like this rather than another really nice quote. So Rachel, let's address first of all, as Mike has said, the first part of this conversation was they're coming for your children. Can you speak to that?
The words themselves, like, I'm kind of head of English and social science, and I know words have a lot of power. We talk about that when I'm teaching my kids, just the power of these words, and the statement "we're coming for your children" immediately sort of gets to that center of that, the mama bear inside all of us, and the daddy bears as well, but the mama bear inside of us kind of want to protect our children. Don't go anywhere near our children. But I wonder whether this has been triggered because just before the holidays, there were a few lockdowns in Auckland. And I think part of the problem is that many parents don't actually understand the policies and the procedures that have actually been happening in our schools for the last couple of decades.
Sure.
We have to realize that there has been a lot of shootings over in America, so we have been preparing for lockdowns in our schools for the last 10-15 years plus, and there's actually policy and health and safety bills talking about how we have to have a lockdown procedure for our kids, and we have to kind of time it and trial it. And I mean, a couple of years ago, for goodness sake, I remember after the mosque shooting, we even had at the last school I was at, we even had the police coming in and actually testing our doors to make sure that all our windows were kind of covered, and we had locked everybody in, and we were all under the tables and what the weak points were, because it really that is a huge concern. Our world has changed, where even sending our kids to school, sometimes we think that they're in a safe place, but sometimes that proves to be wrong. So procedures and policies kind of need to be put in place to have that. And I just wonder if the lockdowns up north around your region actually may have triggered some of that fear, because I think the parents at home need to know that many of these procedures, they are actually, they've been there for a while. It's nothing new. It's nothing extreme. There hasn't been the additional stuff put in to protect our children.
I think you've made a really good point, Rachel, is that we have been, as schools, there's a health and safety plan, which you are meant to have. So over the last 10, 15 years, I have run workshops in case of emergency, and that covers schools as well. And so for them to actually have a safety plan for our children, this is really important. But then again, we come back to the responsibility of the parents. Actually, so part of this voice message, or what was sent out, the reason why there was fear is that we give so much of our responsibility over to the schools. And I just want to see what your ideas, Mike, on what has happened over the last 10, 15 years, where both parents have had to go to work. So we're given our God-given responsibilities over to schools. So when we hear this kind of message, of course we're going to be in fear. Like we've gone, oh my goodness, oh, what do we do? How do we work this out? Yeah.
What I'd like to do, if we've got about half an hour tonight, have we?
Yeah. Maybe a little bit longer if we need to.
Yeah, because Yeah, because what I'd like to do is, I think if we unpackage, what Rachel's talking about with the
Yeah.
lockdowns, and then we unpackage the stuff about the 72 hours part,
Yeah.
and because there's elements of truth in those areas, so we don't want to be dismissive and say, hey, there's no lockdowns, there's no medical health, da 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 da. We unpack those things, and I think the part that you're picking up, Leao, is really important in terms of a positive note to go out on tonight. Is what can we do as parents to protect our children? What can we do as school communities to empower parents? Because what you're saying is, I'm a grandfather, and you get their sense of what the hell are they doing with my kids now? What's going on now? And you get, and it's that natural fear. You talked about the mama bear thing, Rachel. She the old papa at home. You're talking about what? And so this is bringing it back to the lockdown thing up in Kaipē. You're in South Auckland, Leao?
I'm in West Auckland. Same.
I'll go West Auckland.
I shouldn't say that.
So we had the killer bees and the tribesmen running around in Kaikohe playing cops and playing Indians and stuff. And it was getting like the wild west. And some of the daylight, like in the day and just down the road from some of the schools. So some of the schools have done practice lockdown procedures. So to sort of maybe a that sort of inside the school community or whatever, or just sort of and the kids come home. What you do at school today? Oh, we practice lockdowns. You did what? We practice lockdowns, and then it's not hard to then make the jump towards the COVID-19. But so I think for anyone who's listening or seeing this later, is that primarily that the government stuff or the Ministry of Education stuff about lockdowns is in the context of armed intruders. It's not in the context of health. And I think if we can just reassure parents, when you hear lockdown, it's not like how like Auckland was locked down during the red. It's not that kind of lockdown. It's what you do if there's a maniac running around outside school with a gun. You lock the school down, and like some of our teachers, they're telling me, oh, we need blinds. And apparently that's part of, I don't really know what a blind is going to do, but apparently if you pull the blind down, and people and I think, were you saying, Rachel, that kids had to practice sitting quiet or something?
Yeah, we had some issues when this policy first came into place. Of course, I've worked with teenagers and they get to the point of, oh, cool, let's kind of make some noise. Let's kind of, and the whole purpose actually of practicing these lockdowns is to get the kids quiet. Because, of course, if you're making a lot of noise, if you're drawing attention to, say, a classroom that has got full of kids, if worst case scenario, we had some maniac running around with a gun, they would go towards that noise source. So things like that. And it's really interesting how policy changes, because I know that one of the things that parents were worried about, and part of this video or the release was they talked about how the kids were told they were not allowed to contact the parents, and how the parents were not allowed to go down or contact the kids or go down to the school. That is actually new policy after the mosque shooting, because what happened in the mosque shooting is in Christchurch. No one was in Christchurch at that time. There were schools that locked down with this maniac running around, and there were kids who were live streaming the stuff as it was happening, and they were watching what was happening because he was live streaming. But we also had parents who turned up at the schools with an active gunman running around, which theoretically we were told it could have put the parents at risk, but also drawn attention to the schools or things like that. So some of that, logically, you look at it and you think, well, actually that kind of makes sense. To keep the kids quiet, to try and make sure that they are not drawing attention if there is a maniac running around. So that policy is not new, of trying to not actually contact. Because of course, if you're in the heat of the moment and you've got alarm bells going and you're in lockdown, the last thing you want to be as a teacher is calling a parent or having a parent call you. I'm sorry, Jane. Yes, we have your child here. It's okay. It's all safe. If you've got a gunman just outside your room, you're immediately making yourself known. And the whole purpose of the lockdown of the blinds, Mike, is actually to try and keep this line of sight so they don't know. It could be an empty classroom. If people are quiet, it could be an empty classroom. Right. So there is logical things behind that lockdown policy.
I will get some blinds in.
Yeah, good idea. You don't want them seeing it and going, oh, a whole bunch of kids underneath the floor. Let's go in. Yeah.
So we've just had a question from Jasmine, who said, I want to know, can they forcibly vaccinate children against the parents' wishes? So earlier last year, I came across an article from the World Economic Forum that spoke about implied consent in schools. So what that means is that as soon as your child is at school, it's implied that the school can do that to your children. So what I was suggesting to parents is actually opt them out. Just go in there and say, look, whatever vaccine that you have for my child, I'd like to opt them out of that. That's the most polite way to address that. But if you two have other options to that particular question.
As a parent, I've already done this myself. So I'm really not actually personally happy with the new health curriculum coming in. So I made it very much as a parent. We actually, they don't tell you as a parent, you actually still have a lot of rights, because your kid's going to that school, you actually have a lot of rights. So you can go and you can contact the teacher and the principal and say, hey, actually I opt out of having my child for these parts of the health curriculum, or I opt out. My school knows. I put into the application form when my kid went to school, I literally said my child is not to receive any vaccination. We have to have a discussion, and he's not to receive any vaccination, and that's in black and white on his forms. And I've made sure the teacher knows, even if I've emailed the teacher. I guess if you were very worried about it, you could send an email to the principal or to the teacher if you thought that if your kid going back to school next term was going to put them in a vulnerable position. Get stuff down on writing and basically go through and say, look, I do not consent. We do not consent to have my child vaccinated in the school grounds or around the school grounds.
That's good. Mike, do you have any?
I think over 16, they can go and get vaccinated without parental consent. From 16 to 12, they also, it's this implied consent thing. Like, so they are of the view that they are mature enough to make their own decisions. So if they so there is that likely scenario that if everybody in your class is lining up to get a vaccine, and your principal has told you you're going to save your grandmother's life if you take this vaccine, a certain amount of peer pressure can come on kids. So that's from age 16 to 12. They can actually do that without consent. That's this implied consent thing.
Right.
One of the things that we did at our school is, coming back to the parental rights, is we made a strong stand that we support parental rights, and that we won't have a vaccine bus on the school, because that just puts too much pressure on everybody. And we kept kind of neutral about it, and we said, I think we put a link in our school newsletter. If you want your children vaccinated, these are the clinics you can go to. But I would encourage parents to get on the board, lobby the board, make it clear that they view the school as for education. It's not to administer stuff. It's not to inject. So. We've had meningococcal, and come in and do meningococcal testing and all that. That's all good, but you get on your school board and the angle to come from is don't come in with the big sort of anti-vax thing, but come, I'm pro-parental rights, sticking up for the parents' choice, that kind of stuff, because that's that thing that's been eroded. So I hope that helped Jasmine. Yeah, Jasmine, they can't forcibly vaccinate your children. The other difficulty is when you've got mum and dad are split up, and one parent's pro-vax and the other one's not. Yeah, that can get really messy.
And we've seen the courts, unfortunately, with that actually there inside of the pro-vaccination. Even just in the last few court cases, unfortunately, the courts seem to go in that favour.
So I've got a burning question again from Jasmine, and this is probably on behalf of all the parents out there. Is it safe to send our children back to school next week?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, there's no evidence that there is going to be a big push to vaccinate kids or lock down schools. There's no. We've had a thorough look into it, and it's safe to send your children. As safe as it was, it's as safe as Monday next week will be as safe as Monday last term of school.
I agree with you with that we haven't found any evidence to support a sudden change or bill where they're going to be locking down the schools and forcibly vaccinate. We haven't seen that. We have seen over the last 2 years schools bringing buses to the area and coercing 12-year-olds and up because of the whole thing. But that again is then where I guess the dialogue between you and your kids is really, really important. So that dialogue of, honey, if you see or if they're trying to do this, that you know we say no, or you have that open dialogue, I guess, with your kids. And unfortunately, I guess before this pandemic, probably some of the conversations we used to have with our kids were a lot more straightforward, but now they seem to be a lot more tricky. And to be fair, and I mean, this is the thing, to be fair, the government has proven itself to be rather untrustworthy with the manipulation and the coercion, and that's the reality. But I also think, in a way, by keeping the kids at home, it also puts them slightly at risk, because we know that the new Minister of the Police was Hipkins, and he is very much on that whole thing about truancy. So we know that is going to be the next hit with parents. So I think you give your kids the tools so that they know that they can leave. I know in some areas where I was, there was that big fear at the very start of the year with this being pushed, and our community groups, this is where community comes in. We have community groups who have literally said to the kids, I live just down the road from the school. If there is an issue, there is a safe place. We will tie a balloon or we will tie whatever to this mailbox. If there is any issue, then make sure that you can go to a safe place. So, I mean, there is lots of things that we can do if we are seriously worried. But I personally, I'll be sending my kid to school on Monday just with these tools, and I'm not actually that worried about it, because I don't think there's enough evidence.
Okay. So according to Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health supersedes when it comes to something like this, so a pandemic or anything that happens in that regard. Can the Ministry of Health require children to be tested under the COVID response bill? Do you know?
All I can really say about that, because I had quite a thorough look at the 1956 Health Act, and I think it's fair to say that an officer of the Ministry of Health has all kinds of powers, quite far-reaching powers, and so there's I'm not an expert on the law, but there's different grades. Like there's a public health emergency, a public health whatever, different. If they declared a public health emergency and there was some sort of disease detected at a specific premises, a school or a home, they could require everybody in that place to get tested. So like, we're talking here like an extreme type of situation. So there's, like somebody's got really sick. There's reason to believe that some house may have some sort of infectious disease, let's say Ebola or something heavy like that. Right? Okay, everybody in that house, you all got to get tested. So there is huge powers in there. So, but whether that specifically kind of applies across the board for the COVID-19, I couldn't really honestly answer that question.
I just want to connect truancy with fear, because this is the thing that I like. Part of community development, I've run some workshops and courses with children in schools around with truancy. But the thing is every time something like this happens, whether there's a classroom that has had a breakout, or a teacher's got COVID, or the kids are wearing masks to school every day, this all speaks fear. This speaks fear. So we're on one hand, we're saying to the kids, you need to come back to school. On the other hand, we're speaking fear into their lives. So at any given point, a lot of these children go, no, I'm not going to school. I don't want to get COVID. I don't want to give COVID. I don't want to receive COVID. So this is the kind of thing that each teacher, each school are grappling with. Do we go with fear, or do we stand our ground and say, okay, enough of this. You're all coming back to school and we're learning? Or is this too good to be true now, this kind of reality? I'm putting it out to you both.
I know that my children, particularly, any excuse to stay at home is kind of one of the thing, really. A really good example is that my ex actually got COVID just the week before the last school holidays. And even though we've had COVID, not a big deal. My family, my kids and myself are unvaccinated. We only got a little bit sick, but even though we've had COVID, the fact that it was within or over the 3 month that the government says that you could contract it. So my son was very happy to have an extra week off school before the school holidays, because of course kids would rather be on the TV or on the computer than go to school. But the problem is I think it's doing a lot of damage in some cases. I can understand people's reluctance to send their kids to school, but one of the things I love about the freedom community is that we're all running around maskless. We're all sitting there and hugging each other and going, COVID, it's just a virus, it's not a big deal. And we actually have a lot of that. We're not scared of that. And it's really beautiful to see, because our kids are running around and hugging people and not wearing masks, and they're not scared. And it actually breaks my heart to see people who are scared because they have been so fearful with the last 2 years of this virus, and I find it a real shame that we are potentially having kids who are being inundated with fear of what could happen. I think it's not healthy to be living at that. I think studies have proved that living in that state, that heightened state of fear and awareness, actually is quite, it's not good for mental health or for kids. So actually I would say that we don't live in fear. We look at the options, we look at the possibilities, we look at what the legislation is and where it could go, but we don't run around going, the sky is going to fall and expect it to fall at any point, because that's really no way to live. And I would rather my kids, we have alternative plans and scenarios that we can work with, but we go to school and we're not scared. We're just there to learn. We're there to actually be free.
Sure, that's good answer, Rachel. Mike, do you want to say something, or shall I bring up the next section for you to comment on? Yeah, you're muted at the moment, so.
I think we decided we would get on the front foot before the ministry started telling us what to do. And we did some research from the World Health Organization, which I know that's a swear word to some people, but they actually strongly supported getting kids back to school, keeping schools open, which is what Rachel's talking about. The schools should avoid at all costs, really, closing or that kind of stuff. And they want to try and make our schools welcoming, not fearful, that kind of thing. So I guess each school will have its own sort of culture and climate on how they do that. And this is going to, get back to the communication with the teachers and staff, and helping to create that positive atmosphere. I mean, the balance is, health and hygiene is important. So there are some sensible things we can do, but living in fear is certainly not the way forward. And if you want if you're scared about the government coming for your kids, truanting, they will come for your kids.
Yeah.
They will. There's the there's the Rock On program, all that kind of stuff. I think there's about 800 million in the budget to tackle the truanting problem. So don't think that sitting at home with your children's, while we understand it, that's not really going to be the answer. Sad to say.
Yeah, there is a bigger picture to this. That's why I said fear is a lot to do with it, but also we have a lazy generation. I'm sorry. We do. It's like, well, actually we're getting money, we're getting paid to do nothing. So what kind of future do we give to our children if that is what we second, third, fourth generation, being on the benefit? So these are bigger issues to deal with, what we're actually talking about tonight. But I want to address that summary of infectious disease management under the Health Act, because this is directly in response to the 72 hours.
Yeah.
So if we can have that up, would you be able to speak to that, Mike?
Again, it's at the you're going to bring it up, are you?
Yeah, I think Elliot's got that.
Okay. And the main, if he brings it up, the main heading to look for is urgent public health orders.
Okay.
So this is where the 72 hours comes in. So this
is important to speak to, I think.
So this is so we've covered that the source of the lockdown is the armed offenders incidents. The source of the 72 hours is the specific act and the advice of the. I'm hoping what Elliot brings up is the Ministry of Health website.
Ministry of Health.
Summary. So it's Ministry is health. Health.gov, but it's the summary of infectious disease management under the Health Act 1956, and and you can scroll down.
Can I just say that under one thing that's really interesting to note is under the Ministry of Education, when it goes into things like the notifiable diseases and it goes into the procedure for the schools, it really spends a lot of time talking about the precluding of the students. So they would rather have the kids out of school and back home and not actually in school, or the staff in school, because you don't want to have a whole bunch of sick people in this one area in a school environment. So the actual Ministry of Education talks about how the best practice is to make sure that if anyone shows any signs of these infectious illness, to make sure they are gone, they are back at home, and they may be locked down in their own home for 72 hours. And there might come a time, there might be some things like where they will not accept the child back into the school unless there has been treatment. So I know with some of the kids when I was teaching, if the kids had something like, like a what do you call it, where they had like school sores, or where they had some of the other things that were very, very virulent, they were not allowed to come back to school unless they had had the antibiotics and the treatment for that, because they did not want them coming back into the school and infecting everyone else. And that is part of that Ministry of Education website as well.
I think as Elliot's bringing that up, I'm thinking that people, the public, are thinking the military, the martial law. This is the fear that's where that comes from, where they can take out our children. But we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of children.
750,000. 750,000 kids. I looked it up before we came on. 750,000 school-aged children in New Zealand.
So that kind of that would be very difficult to manage, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So the 72 hours is under that response. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, we got the right page, and now we're just getting the right the right heading, and the heading is, you got to scroll down. So if I don't know if Elliot, if you can hear, but if you click on that link that I've put in the chat, and then it'll bring it up, and you get to a heading that says public health measures. And the public health risk getting close. Court orders, urgent public health orders. There we go. Yeah, urgent public health orders is the subheading that you're looking for. Yeah.
So what does that actually say? Can you tell us?
Yeah, I can
you
read
summarize
it
for us?
Yep.
Yeah.
Here we go. It says medical officers of health can impose urgent public health orders, which are administrative orders. The effect of an urgent public health orders is to detain a case for 72 hours at a specific premises or parts of premise, subject to any stated conditions. So that's for your 72 hours. So I think in the Ministry of Education one that Rachael used a different term. This one is detained. Detain a case for 72 hours. And then, keep going down. Person behind the screen, you're on the right track.
So under the Ministry of Education one, it says issue administrative 72-hour detention orders is what they call it. So they are talking about a 72-hour detention, not a lockdown, but a detention. So to hold people in a specific place. And that also means that you can,
yeah. So I can see why somebody reading that first paragraph there could conclude that if there was an infectious disease broke out in a classroom, say, or in a school, or in any place, any premises, that a medical health officer could say, right, nobody leaves, nobody's going home until we find out what this disease is and who's got it. But let me rest assure listeners, it's not monkeypox. Monkeypox is there's one case of monkeypox in New Zealand, and without being offensive, the Ministry of Health has advised that it's prevalent amongst the homosexual community in the kind of like the gay nightclub scene. It's not a disease that kids are going to get at school. So the idea that they're going to vaccinate all the kids in New Zealand against the monkeypox is pretty far-reaching. If you go down to the third paragraph, there's another reference to the 72 hours.
I just wanted to say, allegedly, the monkeypox has been around since 1918. So it's not something that's new and people can be afraid of. It's something to say, actually, this has been around for quite a long time.
Yeah. And don't sleep around, because you won't get monkeypox, basically. Yeah, I mean that's what the actual Ministry of Health is saying. That's not just
Medical officer of law can apply to the district court before the 72-hour period expires when the public health risk posed is likely to continue for more than 72 hours. I mean...
Yeah, so the scenario would be, you say maybe we go around to Rachel's house, she's foaming at the mouth, she's broken out in sores all over the place. We go, what the flip is this? yeah. I don't know. Let's lock it down for 72 hours. And then, the Has Chem guys come in, they say, we better test our kids, we better test everybody, we've got no idea what this disease is. And then, on day 3, they still don't know what the disease is. So they've got to go down to the court and get that extended. So it is a pretty powerful measure. And if you read the whole document, there's no liability on the medical health officer.
Wow.
If they stuff
that is a lot of power. That is
a
little bit of an overreach of power, to be fair, Mike.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
To note with that, it's not just for schools. It could be any business. It could be any home, and that's the thing. I think sending a message out saying lock your children up or keep your children away is a little bit alarmist, because it is just we don't have a lot of that information. It is just stuff, and actually a lot of the stuff has been in legislation for a relatively long time. Like the school stuff, the legislation has been for 10, 15 years. Someone said to me today, well, how come they're getting all this food or asking for all the food? They're preparing all the kids to be locked down at school, so they're asking for food. But I would counteract that and say, well, actually, for the last 10 years, we would at school always ask for food for either breakfast club or for the fact that there are families in the community, especially at the moment, there are families in the community who are really struggling. And so we kind of need, schools do ask for the food so they can give it to people in the community. So again, nothing really new.
That's right. We've been part of the rescue food program for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years now. And that's from families who have either lost their jobs or, the businesses have closed down. So we gather together with the teachers, with the principal, and we talk about how we can help support these families. So this is not new, people, they're asking for. So taking out the rumors, there might be some validity to it, but do we even know the source of who actually spoke this, who actually sent this a recording? Do we know who it is?
I think it's come from multiple sources, and to be fair, I think one of the recordings said that they knew somebody high up and they couldn't release who those sources were. And immediately, there have been rumors and whispers of rumors for the last 2 years. Last year we got told that there were all these overseas military troops around Nelson Way, and they were going to come in and do martial law on us at any second. Again, I think we have to go back to the fact that we can't live in fear. We're free. We are literally free people at the moment, and I do think it is something that we have to remember. We are free.
Yeah. We just have a few more minutes. Oh, sorry, Mike.
I was going to say the balance to that is not to be complacent.
Yes.
And I know Rachel's not saying we can be complacent, but we can't live in fear. But neither can we be complacent. We have to acknowledge that the medical officer of health and medical officers have tremendous power to arrest, to detain, to require you to go and get vaccinated, that kind of stuff in an emergency. So we're not in an emergency right now. This is not an emergency, but their power is there, and I can see why people are. And so if we saw something like quarantine camps being built, and so we've heard bizarre rumors that they're going to quarantine people in Christchurch in the red zone, We've heard the bizarre rumours about the army up north. No, I haven't seen a soldier up north for about 20 years, all that. But at the same time, we've got to keep our eyes and ears open. And if we only got a few minutes, what I would really want to encourage parents to do is, fully engage with your kids first and foremost. Get that communication, get that, those conversations that Rachel was talking about. Get those going about what your family values are and what we believe in, that kind of stuff. But also, we've got the Board of Trustees elections coming up.
Yeah.
And go for the Board of Trustees. Get on the board or back somebody that supports your values, as not so much the anti-mandate or the anti-vax, but just people who believe in parental authority and believe that it's a parent's responsibility to make medical decisions for their children, not anybody else, not the teacher, not the nurse. It's your responsibility as a parent to make those medical decisions. So get involved. Homeschooling collectives is another. I know it's pretty popular at the moment. But if you can do it, do it. But don't. Let's get. I'd say get involved. Communicate with your staff, with your people. Make friends with the Board of Trustees. Even better still, turn up to the parent-teacher interviews. Every school I understand should have a pandemic response policy.
Yes, they do. So, yes, they should.
Yeah, so get on the phone and say, hey, I was just wondering what our pandemic response policy is.
Yeah.
And all that shows is that you're informed and that you're interested. And they, it's probably, so they, oh yeah, okay, we'll pull it out, we'll read it. Yes, I'll send you a copy.
And I would also, as a parent, but a lot of us are really busy and we go to jobs and stuff. Two parents go to jobs or one parent goes to job. I would also encourage people to kind of get to know the school community a little bit and have those friends in the school community to watch out for each other, because even talk to the teachers, like email the teachers. The teachers, a lot of the time, to me as a teacher, if I was in a school and they turned around and they said, right, we're locking you down for 72 hours with these kids with no beds and not really, I'm sorry, that would be, I can just imagine the mass freak out of the teachers, because that's not something that they would be wanting to do either. So just, can you imagine it? No, you're being locked out with 30 or 40 kids for the next 72 hours. No, it's going to be quite insane. And then, logistically wise, you've also got things like, the schools are not set up for it. Where are all the beds? They don't have the beds to house children. They don't have the food capabilities. They don't have the medical capabilities. How many kids in our schools are on insulin, or the teachers are on some form of medication? I think logically, if we were to take a step back and go logically, if the government were to do something like that, there would be a huge backlash from parents. And I'm not just talking about parents who are anti the vaccine. This would be parents who are probably, either or. I think something like 75% of parents have turned around and they've watched what has happened, and 75% of the kids have not actually been vaccinated because they don't see the need, because it's just a harmless illness for children. Yeah. So you look up all these kids, you're going to have the parents an absolute outcry going, heck no, you are not doing anything with my kids. So logically, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Masks, I just want to... The other, like, people get freaked out about the masks, and like school say you got to wear a mask or whatever, and but actually you cannot deny any kid an education. That's the law. So if it's not masks aren't mandated. I know there's a push to mandate them, but they're not mandated. And if you don't want, they don't actually they can't be excluded just because they're not wearing a mask. They have a right to have education.
Yeah, so that comes back to, do we let them, is it truancy or is it wearing masks? So we still grappling with that. Hey, I want to thank you both for being here and addressing this, because I know that's been on the hearts of quite a few parents. Thank you for your candid responses to them. One is that yes, this could happen, but the reality is that there's so many things to think about in that regard, and so being able to address it, but also we don't have to live in fear. We whatever we give our sovereignty, we actually give away. It actually belongs to us. Nobody can take that away from us. So what we give away ourselves. So today, just being able to address these things, and there's going to be probably plenty more that will come up in the future. So I would love to have you back and in discussion with this, because this is ongoing. We've got all of our teachers, all of our our schools. We've got our parents, our grandparents, all wanting to at least understand some of this. And so to have you both here, thank you so much for your time. Blessing and favor over you both. And if you've got any last comments, if not, we'll end the show tonight. We're all good? All right. Well, bless you.
I just probably wanted to say thank you so much for having us on, because I do think it's really important that we do have this open discussion. I mean, this one of the problems, or one of the things that has happened in the last 2 years, is that it's become very un-PC to have a different view or have a discussion. You are somehow vilified for not actually being on the same page as everyone else, and this is really the only way we're going to solve this complete shutdown of communication, is by having these discussions. So I would encourage any parent, if they are worried, if they are truly concerned, they can contact us. We can just have a conversation, or potentially just have show you a couple of the ministry guidelines if that's going to help. But just feel free to contact us if need be.
Thank you, Rachael. And that's the New Zealand Teachers Speaking Out in Science. Yes.
Yeah.
And don't forward stuff if you don't know it's legit.
Yeah,
I agree. Well said. Thank you so much for both of your time. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and catch you next time. Ka kite anō.
Bye.